after Logan and Barry had escaped Knox Country on their boat, and after a lengthy journey of many months downriver and eventually across the Atlantic, the two companions wound up shipwrecked on a small island off the coast of Cherbourg, France. It was soon apparent to Logan's dismay that the virus had indeed spread from Knox Country to Europe, after encountering zombies nearby. Whilst they had shipwrecked at an ideal location for survival, Logan was determined to find other survivors and help them in any way he could. After a lengthy journey by foot across the island they had shipwrecked on, exploring many mansions and settlements along the way, Logan found a small dock with some boats, and after looting the nearby town, Logan found the tools and supplies needed to fix up a boat and find enough gas to get them out of the bay before they could get back onto the open water and head towards the mainland. On the way they found a tiny island a short distance from the mainland with only 2 houses and a handful of zombies. After securing this island, Logan eventually decided to settle here, where he knew they would be safe from harm. Once on the mainland, it was obvious how different it was to Knox Country. There were vast open spaces, few structures between major towns, and very few cars outside of any settlement. Logan's initial few weeks were hard, travelling on foot for miles in an attempt to find a working car, having to rely on foraging for food along the way. After finding a major settlement a few miles from his starting point, he soon found plenty of resources and a truck that would be ideal for transporting goods back and forth from the town to the boat. The problem was that most of the car batteries were now flat after being left for so long. It took about a week of searching before Logan found a viable battery that he could put into the truck to get it working. During that week he found a prison bus, another viable vehicle, as well as plenty of resources for enhancing his skills, plenty of magazines for new and interesting recipes and crafts, as well as dance magazines and models to keep himself entertained. By the time Logan had successfully got the truck back to the boat, he had stuffed the vehicle full of resources, ready to help him survive. It was at this point that Logan decided to build him and Barry their own house on the island that they called home. Whilst the mansion was enormous, it reminded him too much of the previous inhabitants and the situation that he now found himself in. Constructing the house took time, repeated trips back to the mainland for resources, furnishings and supplies. But eventually, they made a home with a bedroom, kitchen, dining room, storage room, rec room and library, as well as a rooftop bar and balcony. Along with a small orchard and a large farm building, they had created a paradise. He also constructed fortifications around a gas station, near to where he docked his boat on the mainland, so that he could store vehicles there, as well as a temporary base, if needed, for him and survivors. But Logan's trips to the mainland had other objectives, besides simply decorating the base. Of course, his main objective was looking for survivors, but he had a side objective. Logan craved a fancy cocktail. He was now into the 2nd year of the apocalypse, and he craved some normality in his life, something to remind himself of the past. After months of searching through various settlements and remote locations, he didn't find any survivors or the ingredients needed for a cocktail, but there was evidence that these survivors existed. Various helicopters and planes often flew overhead, suggesting survivors must have a base nearby. Logan never did manage to communicate with any of them. He witnessed a few of these helicopters crash, but the pilots were always deceased upon finding the wreckages. Eventually though, Logan did find the elusive ingredients needed to craft a cocktail, and once he succeeded in making it, he sat on his rooftop bar and drank it, feeling like a king. During his downtime, Logan occupied himself with hunting, fishing, and trapping, collecting trophies of his hunts and displaying them proudly in his dining room. He became proficient in multiple skills to keep himself entertained. He became excellent at cooking, able to craft amazing culinary delights. A skilled tailor, allowing him to craft his own spiffo outfit, a reminder of home. And he became a master blacksmith, able to make his own ammo, tools and weapons, including katana, which he used to mow down horde after horde around Cherbourg. But whilst Logan had accomplished many feats, he never felt complete. He had found solar panels, but not enough parts to actually build a solar array. He knew that if he could finish this off, the house could be fully self-sufficient, with ample power to support multiple survivors, should they ever arrive. So he set off, exploring the mainland for supplies. His search led him to Cherbourg city centre. Here he managed to find the missing parts he needed for his solar array. But during this time he encountered massive hordes, more zombies than he had ever seen. He decided then and there that his mission in Cherbourg would not be complete until he had at least attempted to reduce the number of zombies in the city and give survivors a chance to survive there. Once Logan had completed his solar array, he knew he needed to make a trip back to his starting location, the island where he shipwrecked all that time ago. During his travels there, he had encountered vast amounts of guns and ammo in the countryside mansions. He knew these would be needed in his fight against the hordes of the city centre, and so he set off to secure it all. During this trip, he fell into the sea whilst exploring the wreckage of a survivor's helicopter, leading to getting severely ill. His trip back was intense. Winds were bad, low on provisions, and his fever kept getting worse. But he did secure a number of supply boxes that had been dropped into the sea by a passing helicopter. It was the first time that he'd witnessed survivors trying to aid him, rather than just observing him or being outright hostile. It made him feel uneasy. The different factions were keeping tabs on him, but at least it was reassuring to him to know that there were survivors out there who were on his side. With this aid, he was able to get himself back to the island safely and wait out the illness in the comfort of his own home. After recovering from the fever, he set out to explore the countryside further and further afield, looking once again for evidence of survivors. He was determined to get to the bottom of the mystery of who they were and why there was so much interest in his activities. He found a few settlements that suggested survivors had settled there previously. There was nothing there to suggest that they were still nearby. With Logan losing hope of finding any other survivors, he decided to head on over to Cherbourg city centre. There he hoped he could make a big difference, taking out a large portion of the zombie population, and in doing so, give survivors a better chance at survival there. It was a long and bloody few days where he massacred thousands of the undead, raining bullets and fire upon them. Logan successfully reduced a large portion of the population, but with dwindling supplies and his truck on its last legs, he decided to leave the city for the time being. During his trip back, he secured a boat, with the intention of towing it back so that survivors could use it to get to the island as and when needed. However, when he arrived back, he saw something he never expected. Multiple armed survivors, kitted out with military gear and assault rifles, blocked his way. At gunpoint, Logan was forced out of the truck. After a signal from one of the group, an armoured car pulled up next to them. Soon after, an individual stepped out. His mother. He had so many questions. Why was she here? How was she alive? Why was she in the company of this militia? Where was his father? So many questions. But upon looking at Logan, his mother simply turned her back on him and instructed her men to take Logan alive. With a thud, Logan's vision went dark. He was thrown into the back of a container and driven away from all that he had accomplished and sacrificed over the past year, into the unknown, to face his destiny.